It's July 2024 and I'm turning 67 this year. Now, I've just returned from Rookwood Cemetery, and amongst other things, I paid a visit to our teacher's gravesite, Frances Fong. Now, she died on the 13th of July 2 years ago, 2022. So a lot of things happen in July. Now, as every year rolls by and it becomes my anniversary, my birthday, I always ask myself the question, what insights have you gained in the last 12 months, Jack? And I would have to say that hi-fi, that's my insight for this past year. Now, almost 40 years ago, during my last years in Fiji before I moved over here to Sydney, Australia, Wi-Fi wasn't a thing, but hi-fi was. Why hi-fi? Well, I was in that period of my life when I was really into hi-fi. I was deeply into the audiophile lifestyle, looking at the best audio equipment. And the essence of hi-fi, which is high fidelity, the essence of hi-fi is one, the ability of the equipment to faithfully reproduce the original sounds. And the limitations of hi-fi was the bandwidth, because sound starts off with the really low frequencies, the bass, and then you've got the vocal frequencies, which is what you hear, and then the very high frequencies that a lot of people, as they get as old as I am, can't hear anymore. So it's that full band. Now, the best hi-fi equipment is hopefully going to be able to reproduce that band of sound. But the unknown thing is the source signal. This is at the recording studio, how much of that bandwidth they've actually put into the soundtrack. So they've put in all this data into the soundtrack, and the challenge of the hi-fi equipment is to be able to receive all that bandwidth of data. And one of the key measurements of high fidelity is what they call the signal to noise ratio. And the reason for this is once the source gives you data, then the challenge of the receiver, which is the hi-fi equipment, is to be able to reproduce that sound without adding in any so-called noise. So the better the reproduction, the better the signal to noise ratio. In other words, you are getting the signal and a lot less noise. The more the noise, the less faithful the reproduction. But after a short while, I got busy and Wi-Fi was a very low priority for me. And it wasn't until this year when the memories of my hi-fi days came back to me of some relevance, because this is something that happened to me this past year. Now, I would say that the quality of communication is based on the ability of the receiver, which is you and me, to be able to reproduce the source signal in high fidelity. Now, we all know that misunderstanding arises when there is a communication problem, because what is said is not what is heard. And that is the fault of the receiver. The receiver is not receiving in hi-fi, in high fidelity. There is a low signal to noise ratio. In other words, the signal has been drowned in all the noise. And what we hear when someone tells us something is more of the noise than the actual signal. And because of this, a lot of misunderstanding occurs. So somehow in this past year, I've been able to develop my ability to process the data, that is to process communication in hi-fi form, that is high signal and low noise. And it's made a dramatic difference to the way that I see things that happen to me around the world every day. Now, if you bear with me, I'll tell you a couple of stories that would demonstrate what high fidelity communication is all about. Last year in 2023, I went to Bali for a business conference. And a lot of the important things in life don't happen during the main event. They happen around the edges of the event. So this story is not about the business conference, but about the rest day. Now, everything has a rest day. So during this long business conference, there was a rest day. Now, most people are quite organized. So during the rest day, they've organized the tours because they come to Bali, they do a business conference, but they don't get a chance to actually visit Bali. So they deliberately make an effort that on the rest day, they would go out and see the sights of Bali. And me being the least organized of everyone, I had nothing organized. So when rest day came along, I went in for my usual breakfast. There was hardly anyone around because obviously they'd gone off onto their tours and everything's been organized for them. So after breakfast, I went, what am I going to do? Well, bright idea. I went, I'm just going to go for a walk. So I grabbed my video camera and a little bit of spare change in Balinese currency because I thought maybe I might have to buy a drink or something. So I didn't need a lot of money. So a bit of spare change, dumped it in my pocket with my camera, and I started walking. And some of you may know that the Balinese are very religious. They're of Hindu descent, and they've got a ritual every morning where they come out, do the incense thing, and they display their flowers outside their front door and clean their doorway, so it becomes a daily ritual for them. So as I went for my walk, I saw all this happening, and it was quite a revelation because it's not often that you can just stand there and then watch them go through their ritual. So I said, this is quite interesting. And so when it was over, I kept walking. So in this narrow Balinese street, there's a guy on the other side of the road, an old guy. He kept waving at me. And I went, and I thought to myself, maybe I don't want to get involved with this because I don't really know what's happening. But anyway, he kept waving, so I walked over. So he asked me a few questions about what I was doing and why I was walking along the road. So I freewheeled a bit, had a long chat with this guy, and I was thinking to myself, this is going somewhere, I'm not sure where. Anyway, we got to talking about what I was going to do for the rest of my day. And I said, I don't know, I'll just keep walking along the road. I'm really interested in your religion. I want to visit the temples, and that should take me a few hours because it's going to be a long walk and they're going to walk all the way back to the hotel. Then he drops his offer. He said, if you really want to know about our temples and all that, why don't I show you? Now, this guy wasn't a tourist guide. He was just one of the locals, happened to be on the side of the road and saw me just walking by. So he offered to show me the temples. Now, what was I going to say? Well, I said what most tourists would say. I said, how much? And his response was quite interesting. He said, whatever you want to give me. So I was thinking, I got a little bit of spare change. It might be an hour or so, and I think I've got enough to compensate him for spending the time to show me all these temples. So I said, okay, I'm in. And how are we going to see all these temples? He said, jump on the back of my scooter. I looked at it, and I don't think that scooter was really roadworthy because it seemed like it had parts missing out of it, and there seemed like there was obviously some pieces missing out of his offer. But anyway, he said, jump on the back. And so I managed to jump on the back of this old dilapidated scooter. So I jumped onto the back of the scooter. He had no helmet on. He had none to give me, so I had no helmet. So now there's these two guys, an old dude on a scooter and me hanging on the back for dear life, scooting up the road past all these cars, and he was taking me to show me all the temples. But wait, he said to me, we've got to do this properly. So we didn't stop at any temples. We went up the road and we pulled into a little driveway. He motioned to me to jump off. I had a look. He waved around and a young guy popped his head out of the window, and I think that was his son. And they said a few things, and the garage door opened and I saw a working scooter. So he was able to grab a helmet for himself, and he said, here you are, there's your helmet. So he had his helmet. I had my helmet, and we are now on a scooter that can actually go somewhere. And we did a tour of all the different temples. And apparently, the temples are not all alike. They each have their own purpose, and some temples are meant for living celebrations, and some temples are meant for funerals. So different temples serve different purposes. So he gives me a tour of these temples, and then when I said, okay, I've had enough, he said to me, do you want to have a look at our river? I said, okay, let's have a look at your river. I didn't know what sort of river it was. So anyway, we are back on his scooter, go down these goat tracks to get down to a little stream where there were some Balinese fishing. It wasn't much of a river. And then he told me another story. He said, this is our river, he said, and we don't take baths in our homes. We come to the river to take our baths and come and wash our clothes. So everything's done in this little river. And he said, it's separated. We've got a section for the women and a section for the men. So this is kind of our bathroom. So I looked around and I said, where are all the women? He said, hey, wrong time. It's in the middle of the day. You've got to come nighttime before you can see the women. Anyway, I think I missed out there. So we finally finished our tour of the river and back on the scooter, labor up this hill, and he goes, do you want to see more? I went, well, why not? And he said, I'll show you our gardens. So we scooted along and we looked at all the rice paddies, and he taught me about rice. Specifically, how long from when rice is planted to when rice is harvested. Guess how many days that takes. So a couple of hours has passed, we've done the rice paddocks, and now we're back home to his place. Then he goes to me, hey, it's about midday, what do you want to do? And I was kind of thinking to myself, all right, I really should pay this guy some money, and I'm sure I'll be able to find something else to do for the rest of the day. But our man would have nothing of it. He said, why don't I take you to Ubud? Now, those of you who've been to Bali would know that Ubud is a major tourist destination. My response was, I think it's going to take us a bit too long. How long will it take for us to get from here to Ubud? And his response was, in a car, a bit over an hour, but with me, half an hour. I went, am I going to be in for this? And I had a feeling that this was going to be a day of adventure for me. Now, people with more common sense would warn me that you are placing your life on a stranger. You don't know this guy. You're going to jump on the back of his scooter and he's going to take you to places that you've never been. So he could take you anywhere and make you disappear. And whilst that was kind of in the back of my mind, it was noise for me. And what I think I was doing was that I was trying to get the signal. And the signal that was coming across very clearly was that this was a genuine guy and we were going to have the day of our lives. So there I was, in the back of the scooter. I managed to do some filming as we were zipping along past all these cars. And after about half an hour had passed, he looked back at me and he said, you've got to make up your mind. And I said, what? He said, do you want to look at the monkey forest or the rice terrace? Now, apparently these are the two major tourist attractions in Ubud. Now, in the back of my mind, I was very conscious of the fact that there was this guy who was offering to take me to the tourist destinations of Ubud. And we had not agreed on a fee. And I had only spare change in my pocket because there was no way when I started my day that I thought I was going to go for an adventure. So I thought, well, let's make this short. We'll just make it one visit. And I said to him, which one's closer? He said, we're just about to come to the roundabout. If I chuck a left, we're going to go to the monkey forest. I said, okay, let's go to the monkey forest. So we head down to the monkey forest. Now the monkey forest is a major tourist attraction. It's a huge car park. He had to pull into the car park. There was a boom gate, and he had to then get past the boom gate, find parking, and then he said to me, I'm going to wait here. You go and visit the monkey forest, and when you're done, I'll be here waiting for you. So I jump off and start walking towards the monkey forest. And it was like a major tourist destination because lots of tourists, and I could see that obviously you got to pay to get into the monkey forest. And I said to myself, well, if I pay the entry fee to go in and visit the monkey forest, I haven't got much money left. So straight away I said, no, I've seen monkeys before, and it's just a major tourist attraction, and there's really no need for me to see more monkeys. So I just walked around the pavilion before you can actually enter the reserve where the monkeys are. And in the distance, I could see this really big king monkey sitting down, and he was having a little bit to eat. So I was filming the monkey, and all of a sudden he looked up at me and he started racing towards me. And I went, wow, this is interesting, because now you have a monkey that's coming out of the reserve into the public pavilion. So he came through the gate and he actually went past me, and there was a group of tourists having something to eat. So what does the monkey do? Straight up to the tourists, grabbed some food, and back to where his spot was in the forest, and he had food and he started eating. And I went, well, I've just seen my monkey demonstration. That's enough for today. So back to the car park to see my friend on the scooter. And this is when I started to process a little bit of logic. So I said to my friend, I said, now we're going to get out of the car park, but I said, you've got to pay, right, to get out of the car park for your parking. And he said, yeah, we got to pay. So I said, have you got any money? He said, no. And now this is when I saw clearly what I had to do. I reached into my pocket, pulled out all the change that I had, and I gave it to my guy. I said, now you got enough money to take us out of the parking lot, and now we can go back to the hotel. And I kind of thought, it's not a lot of money, but at least we'll get out of the car park and it's enough to pay his fuel for the trip. So on the back of the scooter, we pull out of the car park, he pays his money, and we start heading back. Then he turns to me, he said, why don't we also look at the rice terrace? And I went, okay. And now, is it really out of the way? He said, no, not really, but what we'll do is we'll go to visit the rice terrace, right? And then from there, we'll visit the holy temple on our way back to the hotel. And I thought, this holy temple thing was never in the picture. Anyway, he said to me, well, the holy temple is not a real tourist attraction, but for us, it's a really holy place, and it's something that you should have a look at. So I went, okay, I'm in your hands. You take me wherever you want to take me. So we're off, and we're heading towards the rice terrace. And eventually we get to the rice terrace, and he does the same thing. He pulls into a car park, and in this instance, he doesn't have to pay, right? So he pulls in the car park, he says to me, all right, I'll stay here, I'll wait for you. You jump off, you go and have a look at the rice terrace. So there I am walking along, and there's the rice terrace off in the distance. And I thought, well, I might see how I can actually get down and get closer to the rice terrace. So hop down a few steps, and there were two young Balinese guys waved me to stop. So I said, how you going? And they said, where do you want to go? I said, the rice terrace. They pulled out a ticket book and they said, you got to pay. Now, there was no way that I was able to pay because I had no money left. So I said, thank you very much. I'm not going to go to have a closer look at the rice terrace. I'll just hop on up the road and just have a bit of a walk. So that's what I did. I walked up the road and then I walked back. And as I walked back past these couple of guys, I saw another set of steps. And somehow I decided, well, why don't we go down this set of steps? So I went down the set of steps. There was no one there. I kept walking and I made my way all the way down to the viewing platform for the rice terrace. They're really strange that there are multiple entrances to the viewing area for the rice terrace. I happened to pick the one where you had to pay, and then obviously when I had no money and I decided, well, I'm not going to do it. And then I came back the second time, and lo and behold, there was another set of steps where I didn't have to pay a single thing. So I went down and had a look at the rice terrace, and I went, how can this happen to me? So now I've done with the rice terrace, back to my guy on the scooter, and we're off. And he said, now we're going to go to the Holy Temple because it's on the way back to the hotel. I said, okay, fair enough, let's go. So we scoot along all these little dirt roads, and suddenly grind to a halt. There was a tree across the road, and looking a bit further, there was a landslide. There was no road left. So my guy turned to me and says, we're not going. I said, okay, fair enough. And he went, I'm going to turn around and find another way. I was thinking, well, this guy is very persistent. So we turn around, head down another road and another dead end. And I went, surely he's going to give up. Back up the road, and we're onto the main road now. And there was all these scooters coming past. So as we're scooting along, he waves a lady down on the scooter, and they chat. And apparently the lady said, no, you're going the wrong way, follow me. So we turn around and we follow the lady, and eventually we arrived at the Holy Temple. Now he does the same thing to me. He said, I'm going to park here, you jump off and you pay a visit to the Holy Temple, and when you're done, I'll be here waiting for you. I said, cool. And as I walked towards the complex where the Holy Temple was, there were buses pulling up, and I saw that there was a little pavilion and there were actually turnstiles. I went, damn, you got to pay to get in. So I went, well, maybe not the Holy Temple this time around, but I'll go for a bit of a walk anyway. So I went for a bit of a walk around the front of the Holy Temple complex, and it was kind of weird because in the distance there are turnstiles, but there's actually no fence. So you have turnstiles and you got an open grass area with shrubs. So I thought, what's stopping me from walking straight in? So I went, okay, I'm going to keep walking, and I'm waiting for someone to stop me. So I kept walking, and obviously no one stopped me. So now I got to the queuing area for the Holy Temple, and I went, oh, I've got this far. Where to now? I noticed that there was a whole lot of people putting sarongs on because they said that you cannot go to the Holy Temple just the way you dress. You've got to be appropriately dressed. You've got to have a sarong. And I went, all right. I got past the turnstiles with no money, and now how am I going to get a sarong? I got no money. So I looked at what was happening, and the people who were coming out, who had finished with the Holy Temple, they took their sarongs off and put it into boxes. And I was looking and going, now what exactly is happening? So eventually it dawned on me that the sarongs don't cost any money. You just go and grab one, put it around yourself, and you start going into the Holy Temple. So, wow, that's what I did. So I managed to get myself dressed appropriately, did the Holy Temple tour. And as I looked over the main pool where the holy water was coming out, and there were lines of people going towards where the holy water was coming out of these spouts, I spied a few people who were in our business conference who had booked and paid a lot of money to go and visit the Holy Temple. And somehow I got into the same place without having to specifically pay any money. How weird. So to recap, at the start of my day, no idea what was going to happen. And now I had gone to Ubud, I had visited the tourist attractions, and I had paid a visit to the Holy Temple. And I'd gotten to experience all these without any traditional means of payment. And I just kept shaking my head. Anyway, I got out of the Holy Temple, back on the scooter, and we made the journey back to the resort. Now we pulled into the entrance of the resort. I got off the scooter and I had a chat with my man. And the first question I asked him was, I said, listen, you've really made my day. Now, do you want me to get some more money for you? He said, no, the deal was you pay me what you wanted to. Yeah, and I said, yeah, I paid you everything I had. And he said, yes, you're happy and I'm happy. That makes two happy people. So what an incredible day by just being able to receive what was presented to me on that particular day, with only a small amount of noise and with high signal, very high signal to noise ratio. And when you cut out the traditional noise signals of money and security and putting your life in the hands of strangers, you cut out that noise, you receive the pure signal of what's available on the day. And that's what high fidelity communication is all about.
Yeah.
My name Pokar.
Oka.
Yeah, Pokar.
Oka, okay.
You can call Pokar. It's okay. Come here.
Thank you, my friend.
Yep.
Very good day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ayong. Hey, natin maro. Yep.
Now, this Bali story is not the only event over the past year where I've been able to tap into hi-fi, the ability to receive signals without a lot of noise. I've had many occasions with my granddaughter Ollie where we communicate on this really high level of high fidelity, that there is very little noise and it's all about the signal. And it's amazing the level of communication that can happen when you open yourself up and eliminate the noise and just concentrate on receiving the signal. Now, there's one major problem with living in high fidelity though, because even though if you can receive signals in high fidelity, not everyone around you has the ability to do that. And what it means is that there's now a huge disconnect between what you can see is happening and what other people seem to believe in what is actually happening. So in music, you've got the bass, you've got the mid-range, and you've got a high range. And what a lot of people like is they boost the different ranges. So a lot of people would like to listen to their music with a very high bass boost. So it goes thump, thump, thump. Other people would like to have a more balanced mid-range or a very high range or no high range at all. So people have their own taste, and what they do is they deliberately bring their own noise into the signal, and that will eventually cloud out what the original signal was all about. And for a lot of people, the noise is more important than the signal. So 67 this year, and it'll be another year, 68 next year. So between now and my next birthday, what I would really hope is to be able to receive hi-fi, all signal, low noise.